Hi, it's Nicole, and today I've got a scrapbook process video featuring ColieBing's Just Saying collection. This is from Spellbinders. I knew as soon as I saw the images for this collection that this was going to be right up my alley. Everything in here kind of screamed things going on with my daughter. I think it can kind of lean adult female, young female, kind of all across the board. At the beginning, you saw me show a sketch that is a free sketch from SCT magazine. It is their current call. I kept seeing it everywhere. I saw it on Instagram, Facebook, different groups that I'm in. So it was in the back of my mind. I knew I wanted to use it with something. I just hadn't kind of had the marrying of the ideas happen. And when I was going through this collection and I saw all of these chat bubbles, I couldn't let go of the chat bubbles. So I'm actually going to swap out those squares that are on the sketch for chat bubbles. In a couple seconds, I'm going to actually have the sketch pop up on the screen so you guys can see it a little bit better. I did a quick flip through of the papers. These are single-sided, which kind of surprised me, but I also really kind of liked that. Sometimes when you have like two really good patterns and they're back to back, the decision making is rough. So I picked out some favorites, set them aside, and I pulled out this chipboard. We're going to talk about this chipboard for a second because I'm not usually a chipboard kind of person. It's usually a little bulky for me. And as soon as I popped this first one out, I was like, hold up. This is the perfect thickness for me and my preferences. If you've ever done like stacked die cutting, if you've ever made dickers, anything that's like, 3 to 4 layers of cardstock stacked up together where it's not as thick as chipboard, but it's got some weight to it. This was that. I kept pulling stuff off this chipboard sheet, you guys. This chipboard sheet was probably my favorite thing, and I thought it was going to be my least favorite thing. So here you can kind of see a rough estimate of what I think I'm going to do. The columns of chat bubbles at this point is not super clear. I am going to move this around a little bit. If you saw in the sketch, it depicted 2 horizontal 2x3 photos with a space for journaling below it. I swapped my photos to be vertical, so that does kind of change a little bit of the placement, but they are relatively in the same area. They're taking up the same amount of real estate, so to speak. I am going to go ahead and put 2 strips of pattern paper over here on the left. I picked some of my favorites. Originally, I thought I was going to use those chat bubble dies that you can see on my mat and like die cut a bunch of chat bubbles, but I had yet to open the chipboard at that point. So a couple of my chat bubbles in the end are actually from pattern papers from the 6x6 pad. And then I would say about half of them are going to come from that chipboard pack, and the other half are going to come from the 2 die cut packs. There was so much, and I think it's in the next clip. I was going through all of this while I was video chatting Lisa over at Life and Layouts and just kind of working on stuff at night. I actually didn't think I would get this far into the process. I don't tend to scrapbook at night, so I think I was just super excited to play with this. But while I was going through everything and we were just kind of talking, I at first was confused because the die cut packs, when I opened them, I realized that there was duplicates of everything. And when I read the front, it said 2 of each design, and she was like, well, yeah, it's probably for like the card makers when you want like multiples. And I was like, yes, but I've never seen this in a scrapbook collection. So I think that's where it can really blend from layouts to cards and back and forth, especially if you are somebody like me as a scrapbooker who sometimes you wish that there were duplicates. So I was like, oh, well, we've just unleashed even more creative freedom if there's 2 of everything. So these little pieces of paper are actually from one of the die cut packs. They were 3x4 cards that had like a chat bubble in the middle. My photo's covering the chat bubble, but I couldn't not use the tone on tone text that was like around it. It made the perfect mat for these photos. I also couldn't decide on photos. One, she's very cute and posed. You can see the front of her new phone. And then the second one is her like weird cackling smile because she finally got her phone, and it's the back of the phone with like the pickup label on it. But I decided to go ahead and leave both of them because this child was very much ready to get a phone. We got the phone a little earlier than parentally we were ready, but because she was joining a competitive cheer team going into middle school, they use a specific app, and that app is not available on, at this time my son had a pinwheel phone, so like those GABA talk phones and pinwheel phones, the ones that are more geared towards like giving your kid pretty much a super locked down phone. I could not get that app to be approved on those phones. So I was like, I'm not going to waste my money buying a locked down phone. I'm going to buy her a regular phone and we're just going to lock everything down ourselves. And then that way she has access to the app that they use for, you know, talking amongst themselves, planning things out. Like she needed to have access to that. The parents aren't involved in that. Like it's for them to be independent and stuff. So she was very much ready because at the time, I didn't realize how many of the other incoming sixth graders had phones. So to her, I was the bad mom that had yet to get her a phone. And I'm like, girl, you're 11. Like, slow down. We'll get there when we get there. So let's get back to shape arranging. This is one of those things that a lot of times I have to just turn my camera off. And I ended up cutting out a lot of footage. I ended up turning my camera off. Anytime I have to arrange a bunch of things, I know I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to keep messing around with it. And I hate sitting through that. I'm not going to make you guys sit through that. So I cut a lot of that out. A lot of it is just moving things around, swapping color, swapping size until it feels to my brain like it's clicked into place. And I'm like, yes, I like that there. It's going to stay there. I take pictures along the way with my phone to figure out, sometimes looking at it in a photo is kind of the same as like backing away and looking at it later. I just keep moving things around and it's super boring and I'm not going to make you guys watch that. I did roughly keep like the column closest to the photos is a lot of the more like wide chat bubbles. The one in the middle was a lot of the more like skinny chat bubbles. And then the one on the far left was more like medium-sized stuff. And then a lot of them I was putting together in like pairs because together they were about the same width as some of those medium ones. And then I am keeping in the back of my mind that I'm going to want to stitch around the edge of some of these. So I'm making sure that I have a little bit of wiggle room for that added like border and the added space that stitching is going to take up. And again, I'm loosely basing this off of those columns of squares on the sketch. I just thought that this would be such a fun way to like swap that out. I did loosely kind of plan where I thought I would be adding some other elements. I don't go super far into what's going to go where at this point. I just want a rough idea and a rough visual of if the crazy idea in my brain is going to work out on paper in a sense. So at this point, everything is roughly where I want it to go. So I'm going to go ahead and start attaching everything. I will say I'm using textured white cardstock, so while the chipboard is self-adhesive, it was pretty much like any other chipboard that I've used where you know you're going to come back and add liquid adhesive to help secure it and just make sure it's not going to pop off, especially because I'm not attaching it to a super smooth paper. I think if I was attaching it to any of the like pattern papers, it would have stuck down just fine. They actually only popped off because I ended up stitching around stuff, and when you're moving the paper around that much, like there was no hope of those staying on there. So as each of them would pop off, I would just set it off to the side, and at the end of my stitching I had like a pile of chipboard that I just needed to go and like put back in the little openings with some liquid glue, and it worked out great. So even here you can see I'm even to this point, I will second guess myself on, do I really like this, or is there another option? And I'll switch things around based on color, based on size. This is just one of those ones where you just lean into having fun. I actually kind of like the fact that because I swapped it from squares, I don't have to worry about them lining up and being like super straight. For the stitching, I just took a pencil. I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see it on camera. I took a pencil and just kind of freehand traced a frame around the ones that I wanted to stitch around. And then I came through with my hole piercer. I did see a recent comment about this, and she had mentioned that I said I didn't like this. This is one of those things where sometimes I have a difficult time accepting change. So like when the first couple of videos with my new camera, I was like, I don't like this. And it's more so I don't like the fact that I had to change it. I've gotten used to this hole piercer. I do have to take breaks sometimes because it makes my hand cramp, but I don't necessarily think that's the tool. I think that's me. I don't have super great hand strength. So I think that's why I liked the shorter chubby one that I used to use, but I really like the way that this one pierces the holes. So I just make sure to take breaks. So here you can see I've come back, I've got all the holes where these popped off, and it was really easy to go ahead and figure out what went where because, you know, those openings only fit specific pieces. So plus I had my photos that I could go back and reference as well to figure out where, you know, where everything was going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of adhesive. I do try to keep my adhesive in the middle. Now here, if you've been around a long time, you guys know I love that Hero Arts sentiment strip die. It's not intended to be used for journaling. I have just figured out how to make it cut journaling strips for me. I have a video, I'll post it above, where you can find the tutorial for this. This die does sell out a lot, and I might have to do a little bit of research because of Hero Arts now kind of being under the Spellbinders umbrella to figure out where does it live now and how do I link it. But that is one that stays out on my desk because I use it so much and I don't want to lose it. So I make sure that it's where I can find it. So I'm going to go ahead, put my journaling down. This has 1mm foam adhesive behind it from scrapbook.com. And I'm just starting from the bottom and going up. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a gap at the top, which that's totally fine. I like having a little bit of opening near my journaling so that I can come back later and add some die cuts or some stickers or something to just bring some interest over there and kind of break up all that text. And from here on out, I'm gonna just start decorating these little chat bubbles. Some of them I'm gonna make sure that I keep blank and open. I just think that that's fun. Others I'm gonna stack die cuts, stickers, more chipboard, so many different things. I did kind of chop this up into bits and pieces. This section alone was like 30 minutes long because it's just me going back and forth and being like, do I like this or do I like this? Do I like this or this? Nobody needs to watch that. So I just kind of cut it to where you can see, like, if I'm gluing something down, clearly I like it. It's gonna stay. And this is a little bit different, I would say, it's kind of still scene building. I always say start with the bigger stuff, excuse me, and like work your way down. I also always recommend keep adding and keep filling in some of those gaps. And eventually you'll get to a place where everything just looks really good and you like the finished version. I think even where I stopped, like my stopping point, 100% I probably could have added 20 more little stickers, little hearts. I probably could have come in with the stamp set and added some like flat hearts on the background. I could have kept adding and adding, but there comes a point where I have to say, okay, overall I think everything looks good as it is, and I have to like put the brakes on because it's just, I don't know. This is the type of embellishing that I enjoy. I think the more traditional type of having like three designated clusters just doesn't work for my brain. And so those are the types of layouts and sketches that I personally feel like I struggle with. And when I say I struggle, I mean I just don't enjoy the process. I typically end up in a place that I like the end result, but I may not like the process of getting there. This to me is just more like free free flowing, what, trying things, moving things. You either like it or you don't. This also opens up just so many different ways to add more. Jumped ahead. I can't even tell you how many things I've added at this point. I'm still kind of going. I did consider, like I said, cutting out a lot of this, but then I've heard from people in my group and people in the comments that say they actually enjoy kind of seeing the decision making and putting all of this stuff down, because I guess it helps you guys either see how long it takes. I think a lot of times when you're editing videos and stuff, everything comes across as being super quick and super easy because so many things are being either sped up or removed completely. But then at the same time, if I leave it in, sometimes it's super boring and super repetitive. So I try to find the balance. I don't know. You guys will have to let me know what you like to see, what you don't like to see. Sometimes I change up, what I cut out. And like today I left a lot of this in, but I cut out more of like the paper cutting and the photo trimming and stuff like that. One of the last things I'm going to do is go ahead and add the date. I'm just doing the month and the day, mostly because I like the font of this old Project Life stamp, and that's all it's going to fit on this little tab. And then what I'll do is I will just write the year on the back of the layout so that I know to put this in my 2024 album. And I've got the month and day on there to let me know where it needs to go. So with that, my layout is complete. Let me know down below in the comments what you think, and I will post links where you can find this collection over at Spellbinders. And I still have this one out on my desk because I've got some other ideas that I want to do with this. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe and join me for more videos. And hopefully YouTube will go ahead and suggest something here for you to check out as well. Until later, I'll catch you guys next time.